Hello ladies and gentlemen, so in this video we are going to learn how to print this pattern. So in order to print this pattern, we are going to have some steps. Our step number one is to print this star diamond shape, and we know how to print this diamond shape in star, right? The next step will gonna be I have to remove these stars by 1. Remove these stars by 1. The third step is when we achieve this step number 2, then I'm going to store in the first row the 1, in the second row the 2, basically the row number, that is I. I is 1. Then in place of this star, or we can say in place of 1, we are removing this by our row number. Then this level of 1 is replaced by its row number, that is 2. It is row number 1, it is 2, it is 3, it is 4, and it is 5. So instead of these 1 1 1 1, I am printing the row numbers. Then our next step is after the third row, I am decrementing the value. Instead of 4, I am decrementing the value. Fine. In this step number 5, I am going to approach the column. I am going to approach the column, that I am going to focusing on the column. See, after achieving 1, I simply want to print 1. In the second row, after getting 2, I want to increment its value by column, not by row, only by column. That is, after getting this 2, then I want to increment its values, that is 3, 4. After getting this 3, after this 3, I want to increment its value by column wise, 3, 4, 5 and 7, 6 and 7. Then after getting this 2, increment its value 2, 3, 4, 1 and 1. When we are done with this step number 5, we have to go to step number 6. That is, now we are tackling our column. See, after this mid column, the values are start decrementing. In this, we are tackling also column, but after this 2, we are incrementing its values. But now, after this column, I want to start decrementing its values. So these are some simple steps that we are going to follow. So we know how to print this star diamond. So let's code it up. And then we'll move step by step. Okay. So I have to take the input from the user. Int n equals to scn dot next int. We have already done with this diamond shape. So if you don't know how to print this diamond shape, go and watch that video for better understanding. For this for loop is for, see, this for loop is for number of rows. This for loop is for number of spaces. So how many spaces initially I want? Int space, that is sp equals to n by 2. I want 2 number of spaces. And how many stars I want? 1. Because in starting, we have 2 spaces and 1 star. Okay. For int j equals to 1, j should be less than equals to spaces, because initially we are printing our spaces, j plus plus, and inside this what I have to print is space. System dot out dot print, for space we are going to use \t. After this for loop, I have to print my star. For int j equals to 1, j should be less than equals to st, that is a star, and j plus plus. System dot out dot print, not ln, only print star. Okay. Now we have to check our condition. If n is less than equals to, if I is less than equals to n by 2, what should I have to do? I have to, if I is less than equals to n by 2, that is by 3, then what I have to do? I have to do increment the number of stars by 2 and decrement the number of spaces by 1. See, the stars are incrementing by 2. In the first row, we are having 1 star. In the second row, we are having 3 stars. 3 stars, which means stars are incremented by 2 and spaces are decrementing by 1. Then st plus equals to 2. Stars are incrementing by 2 and spaces are decrementing by 1. Okay. That's what I have to do. Else after this row, stars are decrementing by 2 and spaces are incrementing by 1. See, in this row we are having 5 stars. Now we are having 3, then 2. It means stars are decrementing by 2 and spaces are incrementing by 1. Stars are decrementing by 2 and spaces are incrementing by 1. After all these things, I have to move my cursor into the next line. Therefore, I am writing system.out.println. Okay. Let's run our code and see we are getting a diamond shape or not. Okay, there is some error on line number 17. System.out. Okay, I have to put a semicolon here. See, we are getting our output as it is a wrong answer because we want to print this shape, this star pattern, not this pattern. We are printing the pattern, so don't worry about it, the wrong answer. Initially we want our step number 1, which is done. See, we are getting our diamond shape. Okay, now we are done with our step number 1. What should I have to do now? We are done with our step number 1. Now, what I have to do? I have to remove all these stars by some constant value, that is by 1. Okay, so instead of star, let me print 1. Let's run it again. Now we are getting 1, 1, 1. But see, we cannot hard code it. Why we cannot hard code it? Because in the next step, we want to increment its value, right? So if I print it as 1, 1, 1, then I cannot never increment its value. So instead of writing 1 here, I'm going to print a value, some value, and val will be, initially, val will be 1. So let's run our code again. Now we are getting our step number 1 in the correct form. Okay. Our step number 3 is, I want row values. That is, I want 1, then in the second row I want 2, 3, 4 and 5. How could I do this? Okay, where I'm printing val now, in this step, I'm going to say that val should be plus plus. After printing the value of val in the first row, whenever we are moving in the second row, when I'm in the second row, I want to print 2, 2 and 2 3 times. So I cannot increment the value of val inside this loop. This is wrong. I cannot write something like this. This is wrong. So why? Because I don't want something 2, 3, 4. I want 2, 2, 2. So instead of writing this val plus plus here, what should I have to do? After this for loop, I have to increment my val. Okay, let's run our code. See, now we are getting our desired output 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, 4, 4, 4 and 5. Fine. Okay, what is my step number 4? After getting this, step number 2 is done, step number 3 is done, now step number 4. After this third row, I want to decrement its value. So we can achieve this very easily. Instead of incrementing and decrementing the value here, I have to increment the value inside this val plus plus and val minus minus. Because we know that these conditions helps me achieving that shape, then downward shape. Therefore, I am incrementing when I is less than n by 2, that is 3. I have to increment our value. But when I is greater than n by 2, then I have to decrement the value. So let's see and run out code again. Now we are getting our step number 4. See, in the first row 1, 2, 3, then decremented our value and 1. Now we are done with our step number 4. What is my step number 5? I want to tackle this. See, how I know that my row is starting from 2, 3, 2 and 1. We are able to know this from our step number 4. So after getting these values, I have to increment their values. After getting this 2, I have to increment the value of 2. After getting 3, I want to increment the value of 3. So I cannot increment the val variable, because in val I am getting this 1, I am getting this 2, I am getting 3, this 2, this 1 in my val variable. So I cannot change the value of val, because I cannot increment or decrement the value of val. Why? Because I am getting the value of 1, 2, 3 from my val variable. So after getting this val value, what should I have to do? I have to increment their value. So if I increment the value of val, in val, suppose that in val we are having 2 for this row. If I increment this val, then it becomes 3, then it becomes 4, and after it becomes something 5. In the next row, I don't want 5 or 4. I just want 3, which is my original val. How can I get that? So instead of incrementing this val value, I'm saying that I'm not going to printing this val. I'm going to print C val. My value is 2. I'm saying that C val should be equals to, that is, column value should be val. And that is C val is now 2. Now I'm going to print this C val and increment this C val. Then it becomes 3. Then it becomes 4. When we move in the third row, then value becomes 3. Value is assigned to 3 now. Now value is assigned to 3. 3 is incremented now. Something like this. So I cannot change the value of val. Instead of that, I'm going to create another value. That is another variable named as cval. Int cval should equals to what? Val. And I want to increment cval inside this for loop, because this column is responsible for incrementing. See, now we are getting our output 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 2, 3, 4 and 1. Okay, now we are done with our step number 5 as well. Okay. We are done with our step number 5. Now the main step. The main step is step number 6. What should I have to do? After this column, that is n by 2 column, that is after third column, n is 5. How many rows we have? 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. That is n equals to 5. N by 2. After n by 2, when after n by 2, that is greater than n by 2, I have to start decrementing these values, the C val, not val, C val. Okay. So when I'm incrementing here, I'm going to write another condition. If st, or we can say if j even, if st is less than equals to what? N by 2, then what should I have to do? I have to increment the val. Else decrement the val. As simple as that. Now let's run our code and see we are getting our output or not. Okay, it's printing me a wrong answer. It's not ST. No. 2 1 3 2 1. Still we are getting a wrong answer. Where we are mistaken. Okay. Not n by 2, it's st by 2. Because st is responsible for columns now. That is, we are see why st by 2. Let me run, as we are it is accepted, so let's try to submit our code first, then I'm going to tell you why st. Oh, I just wish I don't have to write the code again. Ooh, okay, let's try to submit our code. Okay, it's accepted. So why st? Because see, in this, what are these? Initially they are my stars, so I have to check my this value, right? This is my place of my star. These are the places of my star, so I have to check these stars that they are less than or greater than. Okay, so therefore I have used their st. Hope you like this video. Thank you.